Hello beautiful and welcome to my channel. My name is Megan, and if it's your first time here, let me shout out a huge welcome. I am just so thankful that you're here with me today, and I sure do hope you stick around. If you want to join the tribe, just hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell and you are in. Today I am sharing with you the story behind our home birth. A couple weeks ago, I shared with you the most raw and emotional video I've ever posted. As I'm sure you can imagine, it was difficult to edit one of the most precious moments of my life in a way that I could share it with you all. I got vulnerable with you, and your response was so heartwarming. So today I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper and not only share with you the whole story, but show some never before seen footage with you. As you watch this video, please make note of any questions you have in the comments below. I'd love to follow up this video with a Q&A. We know that a home birth is not the typical birthing experience, and we'd love to help remove the stigma and be totally transparent about our experience. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. It was the morning of February 25th, 2021. My husband was headed into work, and for the first time in a really long time, not carpooling. I slowly woke up to him getting ready, but I didn't actually get out of bed until I had already heard him go downstairs. I was kind of savoring this rare good night's sleep I had had, although funny enough, when I asked my husband later, he said that I tossed and turned all night long. As usual, my first stop was the bathroom. I remember feeling like my bladder just would not empty. At risk of sharing too much information, it just kept coming and coming and coming. I briefly wondered if it could be my waters, but I quickly dismissed the thought. But when I stood up and felt a small gush, I knew. And it was right at that moment that I heard the garage door shut as my husband was leaving for work. Of course, I immediately got on the phone and called him, and his first reaction when he picked up the phone was, "What did I forget?" But he started laughing when I told him my waters broke. He was like, "Of course, perfect timing." It was a Thursday morning. Thursdays are always his busiest days at work. He leaves early because he has a business meeting in the morning, and they're usually the days he's there the latest. But as we know, babies never come at convenient times. But I was just so overjoyed at the thought that I would be meeting my baby before the day was over. My next call would have been to Serenity Birth Center, my midwife's office, but as luck would have it, I butt dialed my mom instead. I wasn't quite ready to share the news with anyone, especially since I wasn't even having contractions, so I guiltily lied that everything was normal, even when she quizzed me on if I was having contractions and if any signs of labor were starting. But it's okay, don't worry, I totally explained everything to her later, and she completely understood. So after I hung up, I took a deep breath before putting in a call to the emergency line at my midwife's office. See, they hadn't even opened their office yet. I instantly was put in touch with my midwife. I explained to her what had happened, and she encouraged me to go ahead and try to get some rest while I still could before contractions kicked in. I classily stuffed a towel between my legs and crawled back under the sheets, just in time for my little man to walk in. He crawled into bed with me to snuggle as usual, and I whispered to him, "Buddy, I have a surprise for you." His face immediately lit up as he went, "What?" I told him, "You're gonna have a baby today." And he squealed, "The baby's coming?" When we finally got up and went out into the hallway, I could see Makeda's light was on in her room, so I knew she was awake. So I snuck in there to tell her the good news as well. Her initial response was just an "okay," but I could see that it hadn't fully registered with her, and all of a sudden her face lit up and she got so excited, and I've never seen her more willing to watch her little brother ever. I asked if she could keep an eye on her little brother, get cartoons going so that I could take a shower and get myself ready for what was going to be one of the biggest days of my life. After my shower, I made sure that the kids ate some breakfast, and I had them start their chores, and I started rushing around the house cleaning like crazy. As I was wiping down the table, Makeda looked at me and said, "Mom, you're so out of breath. Will you please sit down and relax?" I told her, "No way. My water already broke, and at this point, I just wanted labor to get started so I could get this baby out. I was done being pregnant." I still hadn't had the opportunity to complete my affirmation cards that I wanted in my little birthing corner, so I got out my watercolors and started doing that with Kellen as the older two started their distance learning. It's not very often that I break out paints, so Kellen was more than thrilled at the idea. We turned on some worship music, I got out all my ideas for the affirmation quotes, and we got to painting. It was such a calm and peaceful moment. It was just like the perfect way to prepare my brain for what was to come. It was, shall we say, a very relaxing distraction. At this point, I started to notice some contractions, and so I downloaded an app so I could track them. They were coming anywhere from like 5 minutes to 20 minutes apart, very sporadic, but I went ahead and called my midwife's office, gave them an update, let them know what was going on. My next call, of course, was to my husband to let him know how things were progressing. Knowing I wasn't in active labor, but also knowing that my labors tend to progress rather quickly, I did request that he start to head home. My midwives requested that he stop by their office first to pick up the birthing tub. Typically, you don't take the birthing tub home till 39 weeks, but I was only at 37, so I obviously didn't have it yet. So he needed to go make a little extra stop to pick it up. As soon as Nat got home, the kids came down and helped him load all the stuff upstairs into my birthing corner in my bedroom, and we immediately got to setting it up. It takes about 15 minutes to actually set up the tub itself, but it takes about 45 minutes for it to fill. So the midwife suggested getting it filled right away, getting it to the proper temperature, and then the tub would maintain that temperature for the rest of the day. Our midwives also prepped us to bump up our water heater a couple weeks ago in preparation for the day, just because we wanted to make sure we didn't run out of hot water, but we did opt for the tub that regulates the water temperature. Okay, so this part might make you laugh, but as we were filling up the tub and getting all the things ready, I started to think through like all these pregnancy posts that I had planned out for the next couple weeks to post on Instagram before the baby came. And I was like, oh no, I'm running out of time. I'm not gonna be able to do any of these. So I decided to squeeze into my pre-pregnancy jeans and do a spontaneous photo shoot. I mean, who doesn't do that while they're in labor? Yep, you can't believe everything you see on social media, dolls. What you saw as an adorable plea for my baby to join us Earthside was actually a ploy so that you wouldn't guess I was in labor. I don't even feel bad about it. Then we came downstairs for lunch and started to play a card game while we had some lunch. My contractions were getting much more intense to the point that I actually had to focus and breathe through them. They were much more regular, only like 3 to 7 minutes apart. So after only one round of rummy, we decided it was time to call the midwives. Around 4:30 p.m., the midwife showed up at our door. When they first came inside, they just did all of the basic check. They started off by checking my vitals and the baby's heartbeat. Well, Kellen helped find the heartbeat at our weekly prenatal appointments and was a pro. This was Makeda's first time hearing this little one's heartbeat, and her face was so priceless. Once we ensured that everyone was doing great, we asked Kellen to go ahead and show our midwives up to the birthing suite. As everyone went ahead without me, Nat actually stayed back to help me up and walk upstairs. He paused and he put his forehead to mine, and I started to cry. This was my moment, to be honest. The contractions were starting to get strong and I was starting to feel panicky because I knew what was coming. I knew exactly what to expect. Without me even saying a word, he just paused and he prayed with me and he spoke affirmations over me, and it was exactly what I didn't even know I needed in the moment. Upstairs, the ladies were setting up their supplies and kind of getting the room ready. My contractions started coming hard and fast to the point that I couldn't even track them and monitor them anymore. And at that point, my midwife said, "You don't need to worry about it, we're here." As I navigated that, they checked the water temperature and perfected the birthing tub situation. My husband hung the affirmation cards for me, and my kids ran in and out of the room checking in on me. But the noise became too much for me all of a sudden. I just needed everybody gone and I needed quiet. What I needed most was my husband's full attention so that I could focus and breathe through these contractions properly. So Nat called up our friends and business partners to come get the kids. Brad and Lindsay had called already and offered their help to feed and watch the kids, so they were expecting our call. Makeda sat with me while Nat hunted down Skylar, who was outside playing with a friend, but checking in hourly. When Lindsay came to snag our kids, I expected a bit of a fight from Kellen since he was normally attached to my hip, but he seemed eager to play, which as I think about it actually makes perfect sense. Our entire day had revolved around contractions and the baby coming. It was around 5:30 when the kids left and my midwives asked me if I want a cervical check. Now, let me just pause and say this is one of the things I loved about doing a home birth. Cervical checks were completely up to me if and when I wanted to have one. Personally, I really wanted to know where I was at so I could gauge about how much time that I had left, so I laid back in bed and requested a check. But as I did, contractions just kept coming one on top of another, and I just felt like I could barely even breathe. When we determined that I was at 6 centimeters, I opted to go ahead and get in the tub. With my previous labors, this was the point that labor really progressed and got super fast, and this labor was proving no different. Up until this point, to cope with contractions, I alternated between a couple positions. I would sit on the ball, I'd lean over the bed, I'd lean on my husband and sway, and the counter pressure that my midwife would often put on my hips really seemed to help. But I was really looking forward to getting into the tub, and even though the water felt like really hot to me, it was also really soothing to my body and to my hips and helped me to breathe and calm down a little bit. Once in the tub, I found the most comfortable position for me for laboring was on all fours so that I could really sway my hips, but my midwives were also really great about offering up other positions for me to change into, applying counter pressure or massaging as I needed. And while we're on the topic of my husband, let me just take a moment to brag on him for a second. I literally could not ask for a more present, empathetic, encouraging, supportive birthing coach. I look back on the footage with just tears of appreciation. There was just so much love in this space. Contractions quickly started coming one on top of another. I felt like I could barely catch my breath before the next one began, but my midwives were there to encourage me to follow my body's instincts. They dabbed my face with ice cold water. They encouraged me to take sips of water. They dabbed my face with ice cold cloths and encouraged me to take sips of water. They also encouraged me to do low pitched groaning and to envision my baby moving downward with each breath. When the intensity and the speed of the contractions had me overheating, they added some cool water to the bath. They kept dabbing my face with the cold water and fanning me as needed. Occasionally, I would have this spontaneous urge to push. I didn't even tell anybody I had to push. I just followed my body's instincts. This was remarkable to me because with my previous labors, I had never experienced the urge to push. Once fully dilated, I was told when, how, and how long to push. Everything here was on my timetable. I was just listening to my body and trusting that it intuitively knew what to do. Nearing the end, I was exhausted and literally crying out, begging Blueberry to come out. I kept trying to switch up positions, but nothing seemed to help. But this man, he just kept repeating my birth affirmations and speaking them over me. I clung to every word, just desperate for it to be over. And then my midwife told me to reach down and feel my baby's head. Without even checking me, she could tell my baby was crowning. I pushed when I needed to push. I rested when I needed to rest. The ring of fire lasted a lot longer this time because I wasn't forced to push through it, but it was 100% worth this slow burn because when I finally pushed my baby out, it was with zero tearing. At 6:37 p.m., I pushed on all fours and caught my own baby. When I swept her up into my arms, my world stood still.
I know.
Hello.
I know, baby.
Hello, little one.
Hi, beautiful.
A little bit of oxygen from you to her.
Hi,
Hello.
baby.
I know, guess what?
Hi.
Yeah.
There's Mama. Oh, honey. Yeah.
Kind of rub her back.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's okay.
I know.
It was
I can
long.
see you trying
Yeah. I know.
She was completely quiet and serene in my arms. My midwife massaged her chest. She let out some very big coughs before she eventually started crying, but once she found her voice, she did not let up.
Sweetheart.
There you are.
Megan. Oh, yes.
She cried out her story for maybe 15 to 20 minutes while I held her and rocked to her and sang to her.
Yeah. Good job, little one. Good job. Yeah. There you go.
At first, it didn't even register with me to check gender, and then I heard Nat ask the midwives, "Is it a girl?" To which they responded, "I don't know, I can't see."
Girls? Yes, girls.
I can't see.
It's a girl.
They wanted us to call it. So all throughout our pregnancy, Nat was convinced it was a boy, and while I had an inkling that it was a girl, I also kept second guessing myself because I had literally been wrong with every guess for every pregnancy, for every child, but apparently not this one. If you watched my home birth video, you may have noticed that right after delivery, my midwife came and put a shot in my arm. Which arm? You see, the only part of childbirth that actually scared me was the afterbirth. With Kellen's birth, I was able to deliver him naturally in the hospital, but only to have his placenta tear into shreds afterwards. I needed to be rushed to the OR for a D&C while my baby was rushed to the NICU. Knowing my history, my midwives discussed ahead of time giving me a shot of Pitocin after the birth just to make sure my contractions were strong enough to really expel the entire placenta whole. When it was actually time to deliver the placenta, I fought back tears, both from the anxiety and from the strength of the contractions. I didn't realize how anxious I was about the whole thing until we were actually in the moment. I could sense Nat was really anxious about it too, but thankfully it all came out smoothly. And for the first time ever, I actually got to expect my own placenta, and it was absolutely incredible to see an organ that brought such life to my daughter. After all the blood had pulsed through the umbilical cord, Daddy got to cut it, and he actually had a really difficult time doing it because it was so thick. Our midwives were just bragging on how healthy her cord was. And then at that point, they asked me if I was ready for them to take Davina's vitals. So I handed her to Daddy for the first time, and he helped them weigh her and check her and all the things while I hopped in the shower. When I had finished my shower, apparently I forgot for a moment that I'd just given birth because I stepped out on our mat to dry off, not even realizing that blood was just dripping down my legs. And my midwife saw me out of the corner of her eye and rushed in to help me and reminded me that I had just gone through a huge ordeal of giving birth and I don't have to do everything on my own. It is okay to ask for help, which is a good reminder for the months to come, right? After helping me into an adult diaper and putting an icy pad between my legs, she helped me over to my bed. They had already prepared with disposable mats for me. They even propped up my pillows and put water on my bedside table. So all I had to do was crawl underneath the covers and snuggle skin to skin with my baby girl. And it was then that I got a nurse her for the very first time. She was more than ready for milk and latched effortlessly. It was just a dream. So one thing you should know about my hubby is every time we have a baby, he is just so eager to introduce this child to the world. So he almost immediately called the kids up, let them know the baby was here, and they had just sat down to eat dinner. That's how quickly this labor went, right? And so Brad said, as soon as they finish eating, we'll take them back. So boy or girl? And he's like, like I'm gonna tell you that over the phone. No, we wanna tell our kids in person and we wanna tell them first. Brad and Lindsay also promised to bring some food for Mom and Dad to eat since they knew we wouldn't have time to prepare anything for ourselves. And I will say that is one benefit of giving birth in a hospital is that somebody else brings the food and provides it directly to you. When you're home, you kind of have to think through those type of details on your own. As we were waiting for our big kids to join us, we got Davina dressed in her first day outfit, which I had picked out months in advance. I had picked out a gender neutral outfit that I knew would look great on either a boy or a girl, but I was really hoping it was a girl. She was still covered in vernix, so her body was sticky, which made her very difficult to dress, but she looked so cute. Introducing our kids to their baby sister in our own home felt magical, especially after a less than ideal introduction to Kellen, which they did through a window in the NICU.
Good, guys. Would you like to meet your sister? Oh, we're saying hello. What do you think?
Daddy, can I go down?
Okay, hold on.
Mommy,
I'm gonna let you sit next to mommy, but you can't sit on mommy, okay? Extra gentle. Kellen's super gentle. Gentle, gentle. Kellen, would you like to get Davina? Katie, would you like to get Don't crush her. Suck her like a little goof.
We can't even tell you how grateful we are to have ended this on such a positive note after 2 traumatic and emergency birthing situations. It was such a healing experience, and God is so good. I know that home birth isn't your typical birthing experience, and I'm so curious to know how many of you have either had a home birth or considered having a home birth. I would absolutely love it if you would leave a comment and let me know a bit of your story if you're willing. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to Miss Davina Day. Can you say hi? Hi. We had such a wonderful home birth experience, and we truly love sharing our story and helping to work towards removing that stigma around home birth. So no questions are off limits, I think. If you enjoyed this video, you'd really help me out by giving it a like and subscribing so that you don't miss a future video. And come back here Thursday morning for the next episode of our moving vlogs. In case you missed the announcement, Thursdays are now dedicated to our moving vlogs, while Mondays will be our more current videos. But as always, to stay updated on our day-to-day life, find me over on Instagram, and don't forget to say hello. Thank you so much for being here today and for giving me the space to share such a tender, precious moment with you guys. I appreciate you all so much. Until next time.